Welcome to Ask the FM Doctor, an interactive web series brought to you by the Simplar Foundation and IFMA to help you navigate the complex and ever-changing world of facility management. Whether you're a seasoned professional or a newcomer to the field, you'll find valuable insights and tips to deliver a better experience for your stakeholders while saving money. Join us on the third Tuesday of every month at 1 p.m. Eastern U.S. time to learn from our FM docs while connecting with other facility managers from around the world. Register today at simplarfoundation.org/FM-doctor so you don't miss an upcoming session.
Rethinking Roof Safety, preventing falls through skylights. Nicholas and I have worked on this subject over the years on a variety of different sections, and so we're thrilled to be able to present that today and talk about some of these main things here. Next slide. So our agenda, we'll go through our teaching moment for about 15 to 20 minutes. After that, we'll have our time to peer groups. If folks want to do that, we'll have some time for a Q&A as well in our office hours, and it should be super informal. So if you have questions or comments or whatever, be sure to jump in here. Next slide. A little bit about the Simplar Foundation. The Simplar group is a group that is really focused on industry research and practical insights, collaborative efforts between industry folks such as IFMA and other folks as well to enable us to be better at the various things that we work on throughout our careers. One thing to keep in mind for your Zoom, please sure to update your Zoom names. If you click on that, go to your Zoom, and Nicholas, you want to click next slide. Be sure to go to your name, click on more, and then rename just so we can know who's there, and that'd be much appreciated. Okay, well, that brings us to the main event. Again, like I said, we're joined by Nicholas Tymvios. Nicholas will introduce himself, but he is a professor at Bucknell University, and he is our resident safety expert, and we're thrilled to have him here today. So with that said, Nicholas, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jake. Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for having me here at your monthly meeting. This topic that I'm presenting, let me introduce myself first. So I'm a civil engineer, professor of civil engineering at Bucknell University, but my background is in construction safety. And a few years back, I started looking further than construction into maintenance safety as well. And this presentation today will talk about some of our efforts that we're doing in terms of making our facilities safer for occupants and for FM employees alike. And it's part of a broader series of allowing facility managers to have a bigger voice into the planning of their buildings to address safety concerns as they're living and working in them. So for this presentation, we started looking at building elements that we thought were of a greater concern, and we started with skylights. And this was an effort where we saw that there was a lot of incidents that were happening on roofs that we felt that FMs who have a bigger voice in terms of addressing safety for their own employees. So when you all know that facilities have a life usually greater than 50 years, and you can either be in an acquired or a brand new structure depending on how your organization works, and but your facility has a lot of needs on a day-to-day basis that require cleaning and regular maintenance. You've got scheduled maintenance activities as well, and then as the facility ages, you have requirements for alterations and repairs, as well as if occupants change, you probably need major repairs and renovations as well. But a lot of those activities need to take place on roof, and as a minimum, you need to have some PPE and fall protection. But skylights can be deceiving because there are really holes in the ground on the roof surface that people think of them as solid ground, and they're not. We have two broad types of skylights, and we call them by the unoriginal name of raised, meaning they are protruding from the roof upwards, and there's probably a slight ledge in there. And here's one example. Here's a couple more. Or flash mounted, where, as the name says, they are flush with the roof surface, just like this example right here, which came in from one of our closed facilities that we work with.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, Nicholas, that like those flush mounted skylights. I mean, for anybody that's walked on a roof before, I mean, I've done a bunch of roof rocks over the years, and look at that one on the right, upper right hand side. I mean, if that picture was not right, or the angle wasn't right of that sun, I mean, there's no way you'd be able to see that, right? So I just think that what you're presenting here is super valuable in terms of helping us realize the real danger that we see in our roofs, and it's something that we definitely need to be concerned about.
For sure, yes. And I would definitely not, I'm colorblind. I can't see that difference between those two colors. So for me, that would be a hazard waiting to happen to cause a fall right there. So we looked at all these roofs, and the good thing is OSHA has a good database of incidents online. So we scoured that site between the years of 14 to 19, and we looked at any incident involving skylights that was available on that OSHA website. So we looked at a 6-year period from 14 to 19. We looked for this keyword skylight, and we discovered 204 incidents in that 6 years, which resulted to 112 fatalities and 93 injuries. 93 injuries. In total of 205 people. One incident had both an injury and a fatality. When you look at that on a timeline, you immediately see that there seems to be kind of a discrepancy in there, especially with the number of injuries. They appear to be a lot in 17 onwards, but very few earlier on. But the trend generally is that the incidence of fatalities are increasing. So what we discovered later on is what we discovered was that not everything is reported to the OSHA website, especially for injuries. And we feel that, yes, the data is disturbing, 204 people falling through skylights in 6 years, but we feel that the data is missing, is underreported. So in terms of the type of work all those people were doing, we identified that 48% of them were doing maintenance and repair work, 32% were doing alterations or rehabilitations, 6% of all those buildings were new additions or new buildings, 6% were operations. I'll describe what those include. In 6%, there was no description, and 2 of them were demolition work. When it comes to maintenance and repair, generally what you would expect to see on roofs, but maintenance would include restarting AC units, roof repairing for leaks, repairing HVAC units, maintaining telecommunication cables and equipment, or even doing pest control. So all of those descriptions of work were discovered through the search that we did on the OSHA site, and it included all of those different kinds of work that was performed. When it came to alteration and rehabilitation of the 32% of the incidents, as you would expect, a lot of that comes with the construction trades and things like repairing of metal roofs, installing electrical wires, carrying equipment, vacuuming gravel, and applying waterproof membrane. The majority of these incidents included construction workers. When, in that category of operations that I described earlier on, we looked at people that were going about their day-to-day work, and people who were occupants of the facility were doing their day-to-day work, and they ended up falling through a skylight. So things like observing work through the skylight, owner supervising work, assessing snow removal if there's a need for snow removal, walking a roof to access roof equipment, taking pictures, and inspecting an HVAC equipment as well. Looking at the geographic distribution, you can clearly see on the map, there's some states that have quite a few incidents, and you'll say those states, because they're numerous or they have way too much population, they would experience the most incidents. But there's clear absence of incidents in some other states. There's a lot of states with zero. And for consider the amount of snow that falls in those states, we feel that not everything was reported. So we do that pretty much raised our concern that many of the incidents are underreported. So we ran through news reports from the different local sites and webs and news sources, and we discovered several incidents that were reported in the local papers but were never reported to OSHA. So we cross-checked for OSHA for any of these incidents, and they were missing. Looking at the industries involved in all those incidents, looking at the employers of all those people who were injured or killed, as expected, the majority of them belong to a construction company, 14% in manufacturing companies, and all others, 14%. So you can tell that from this information, it's not just construction workers who get injured, it's the occupants of the buildings as well. Looking at all those construction workers, as expected, the majority of them are roofers because they do the majority of the roof repair on roofs. But if you have any other equipment on roofs that require some construction work, those workers will be exposed to the hazard of skylights as well. And we feel that skylights have been ignored a lot, mostly from the architectural community and from the FM community as well. So if you look at this picture, which involved an incident in California, you can see the number of equipment that found itself on the roof very close to all those skylights. And in this case, a roofer was doing maintenance work and fell through the skylights. We're also finding that many times roofs are becoming an extra floor for everybody for work or for generating electricity, as it happens in this case right here, where the building, an existing building in 2011, was a flat roof full of skylights. And then in 2013, they put a lot of solar panels, and all of them next to the skylights as well. And in 2018, there was an incident where a person not involved with the solar panel installation was asked to clean the solar panels and fell through one of those skylights. This was the second incident on that same facility. The first incident happened during the installation of the solar panels, but it fell outside our time frame of 14 to 8 to 19 to be included in the information here. So we presented the hazard of skylights, and we showed that it's not just for construction workers, it's not just for roofers. Everybody can be involved in an incident involving skylights. So we need to find a way to protect ourselves and our workers when they go up on roofs. So here's a few solutions out there. Some are permanent, some are more temporary. So looking at more permanent solutions, we can install a barrier, a railing around every skylight. We can install a mesh over the skylights that would can be used to prevent somebody from falling through it. We can go even further, installing a more robust a sky guard like this one here. And for those flush-mounted roofs, we can install something that looks like a wire mesh, but is strong enough for somebody to step on without breaking the skylight below. Here's a few more examples. Some of those security bars that are placed on skylights can be used for fall protection. The skylight would shatter, but the person would not fall through it. We can also include a net with a ratchet as a temporary solution when we have people on the roof, so that if a person falls in there, they're caught by the by the net, or putting a net over a rectangular frame that will cover the skylight. So if a person falls on it, the skylight would shatter, but the frame would not, would prevent the person from falling through, or even implement temporary guardrails all around that skylight or roof opening. Now, we don't ask you to install all those measures right away. We are proposing a solution called the path of travel. So if you have a roof with an access point and several skylights on the roof and HVAC units that need to be inspected monthly. If you're a conscientious facility manager, you don't want your workers to be exposed to that skylight fall hazard. So we suggest that you mark the axis for your workers, indicating where they need to be walking and not deviating from the path. And that really includes actually marking the roof with arrows to show the path that they're allowed to be on. And then for the two skylights that are pretty close to the HVAC units, implement those fall protection measures for those two skylights. So on this roof that has 12, only 2 of them would need to be covered or properly have proper permanent fall protection measures, because they'll fall within the 6 feet of the path of travel. Now, if you do need extra, if you do include extra equipment on the roofs, and you are increasing the area that you need to have access, then we suggest that as your work progresses and you're adding more stuff on the roof, to incorporate the full measures as the need arises. So we really ask you to assess the risk and apply full protection where personnel is present. If future needs require access, if future needs require access to more parts of the roof, apply full protection accordingly, so that you wouldn't have to cover and protect all 12 skylights at the same time. So closing, some of the key takeaways that we have for this learning minute. We would like you to create an FM safety culture where you are part of the solution and decision team early on, whether you are buying a new building or building a new building. We want you to be involved in design so you can give your solutions to the designers. And think about how you can prevent hazards now compared to later. Think of the path of travel, and you can incorporate that for other hazards as well, not just on roofs. Assess your safety needs for buildings you're consider buying. So think of an extra cost that would be there if your owner is thinking of purchasing another building. And think of the lifetime safety aspect of a facility, not just for here and now, only when construction is present. Let's ignore, and we shouldn't be ignoring safety later on, even though you're hiring all those people to do work on your roofs. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nicholas. So I'd love to hear from folks on the call here today. I mean, this idea of having skylights and making sure that, when our maintenance technicians have to go on the roof to maintain a piece of equipment or clean the gutters or what have you, that I know that personally, before I was heavily involved in this research, doing my own inspections for FMs, is that skylights were kind of an afterthought sometimes. We were aware they were up there. It was not something that was clearly obvious and marked, especially for those flush mounted ones where it's totally unclear. But I would love to open up the time to anybody. What have you kind of seen, or your practices you've taken on in terms of making things better, faster, easier from that standpoint? Ron, go ahead.
Oh, well, I come from a design point of view as an architect, but teaching in an FM school program. And from an architectural training, there's basically no training about safety on buildings. As an architect or architectural training, it's all about what skylights provide for interior use. And, from architects, even those come up with problems. Like I've fried people below skylights but the actual safety aspects, there's really no consideration from designers. So that's why we're teaching in an FM program. This is really valuable information because designers or architectural technologists, they don't learn anything about safety of buildings. Even just understanding things like safety features on roofs, it's just basically not part of architectural education.
Yeah, absolutely. It's super interesting. I know, Nicholas, I mean, you've kind of done some work in that space too, about the fact that a lot of design professionals, as part of their schooling, Ron, as you alluded to, is not normally part of what we think about. And Nicholas, I mean, you've done some work in this area. What have you kind of found from that awareness standpoint of safety and how it affects the design and construction process?
Right. So many engineers and architects as well, as the overall group of designers, are generally not aware of the hazards. And as a minimum, we think they should be introduced at least in school, as to what it entails to be up on a roof and to do some of that maintenance work. Aesthetic is great, the perfect design for a roof, robust structures are great, but they need to live for 50 years. So, and they need to be maintained for 50 years. So it really takes a lot of instructors to be educated in order to educate the next generation of designers out there.
Yeah, awesome. Great comments, Ron. Thank you.
Well, the other thing I may just point out is that I think there's going to be more use of skylights, especially from energy issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, because more and more buildings are putting skylights, and even on simpler type buildings, just for daylighting purposes.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do architects feel about how do architects feel about what do architects feel when they hear the word safety? Because we found that there's a little bit of a pushback as soon as we mentioned the word safety.
Well, I think a lot of it is like I haven't worked on huge buildings with huge skylights, but a lot of buildings, smaller buildings with skylights, it's really every architect just runs through the building code and say what's the actual code requirements, because there's so much risk involved in this, but the code aspects of skylights is really just simply saying what's the maximum size of skylights you can have on a roof, and like what's the fire spread ratings of different types of skylights, like whether they're acrylic types versus a glaze. In some cases, there is some safety issues, but very little.
Okay.
Actually, I was quite astonished just to hear some of the statistics of people actually falling through skylights. Because the only thing I was ever aware of is some of the movies that you see people falling through skylights.
Yeah, if you see the movies, it's probably happened before in your life too.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. I know when I was walking roofs, I mean, you would see a skylight, and I mean, you can see down in the building. It's just, it's kind of like playing mind games. I mean, walk by and see some of that, but kind of interesting.
Thank you for joining us for today's session of Ask the FM Doctor. Be sure to mark your calendars now and join our next webinar at 12 p.m. Central Time on the third Tuesday of the month. We look forward to seeing you again.